Get going.
This town has been buzzing all week, if not longer. As Ken McAfee kicks off. And for the first time in 92 years, Marshall and West Virginia play in Huntington. It is taken by Darius Marshall, a terrific young true freshman, and Marshall breaks free. Darius Marshall has only the kicker to beat. He slows down and is taken down near the 25-yard line by Nate Sowers, but that's a perfect start for the Thundering Herd.
This is exactly what the Thundering Herd needed to get the fans into it and get their confidence up coming into this. And the true freshman, Darius Marshall, who Coach Mark Snyder has all kinds of praise for, comes out and starts it early with a big play. Watch this thing open up in the middle. A little wedge there. They take out the first guy, and then Marshall sees that seam and gets into the foot race. He's going to hear it about the kicker McAfee running him down later on, but I'll tell you what, they'll take that play anytime.
Darius Marshall, the true freshman from Milledgeville, Georgia. A 77 opening kickoff return, and the Thundering Herd in business. 1st and 10 from the 23. Their quarterback, Bernard Morris, has Kelvin Turner in the backfield, but Morris is going up top, and his first pass is incomplete. As we head over now to the governor of West Virginia, Joe Manchin, for the Marshall offensive lineups.
Marshall is known for its great quarterbacks like Chad Pennington and Byron Leftwich, but they weren't as mobile as senior quarterback Bernard Morris is. And the offensive line is led by two of Mountain State's finest, in Josh Evans from Fayetteville and Doug Legursky from Beckley.
Legursky very good, an All-Conference USA first-teamer last year at center. The Governor Joe Manchin, a West Virginia graduate, but put on that Marshall jersey to do the Marshall lineups. 2nd and 10 now from the 23. First series of the game. The pitch to Marshall, who had the opening kickoff. And you see why they're so excited about him here, as he made a 7-yard gain out of nothing. And we're going to head back to the Governor for the West Virginia defense.
Every politician needs to be up front, and the Mountaineers sure are strong up front, led by defensive lineman Keelan Dykes. And sometimes as a politician, you have to take the middle of the road. And the middle for the Mountaineers is governed by Reed Williams. And to be a good governor, you have to have a good support staff. Same can be said for the secondary, led by Eric Wicks.
Wicks is a terrific player from Pittsburgh, Big East all-first team. And right now, a 3rd and 3 for the Thundering Herd. Marshall in the backfield, but Morris looking to throw. Now we'll pull it down and run. And he is stopped a couple of yards short of the first down. Johnny Dingle makes the stop.
And Dingle has a tattoo, an NFL tattoo on his right hand to remind him where he wants to go and what he wants to do. And he made a big stop there on that 3rd down. And now Marshall's going to have to settle for a field goal after that 77-yard opening kickoff return.
They got all the way down to the 23. This is a 32-yard field goal attempt by Anthony Binswanger, a senior junior college transfer from Pleasant Hill, California. Well spotted on the near hash. And Marshall has taken the lead. Anthony Binswanger good from 32, and it was all set up by Darius Marshall and his 77-yard return of the opening kickoff. So Marshall watching ESPN's college football coverage of West Virginia and Marshall from Huntington, West Virginia. Due to time constraints, we move ahead in our action. That is number 5, Darius Marshall. He's the one who took the opening kickoff back 77 yards. He is waiting to get back on the field. Emmanuel Spann waiting back around his 33-yard line, and he is waving for the fans to scream. McAfee, who had only 1 punt last week for 6 yards, gets a heck of a lot more than 6 on that one. Spann retreats and goes down near the 7-yard line. A terrific punt by McAfee and great coverage. 54-yard punt, and they lose 8 on the return. Mark Snyder now in his 3rd season in charge of his alma mater here at Marshall. Played only 1 year in 1987, and what a year it was. He led his team in the Southern Conference with 10 interceptions. That is still a record. Marshall was 9-15 since he has taken over. He has been at Ohio State under Jim Tressel and was with that national championship team with the Buckeyes, and he is trying to fire people up. And he is indeed one of 19 Division I head coaches at their alma maters, along with the other man on the sideline, Rich Rodriguez. 1st and 10 from the 12. Ball handed off to Kelvin Turner. And Turner picks up about 3.
And Marshall last week in that loss to Miami, Pam, ended up in bad field position for most of the ball game and really had trouble coming out, which is the situation they're in right now. Now they put it on the ground there, but they really have struggled in this area of the field. That's something they're looking for improvement in.
You mentioned they had the 12 penalties, also threw 4 interceptions and gave up 6 sacks. Bernard Morris, a senior from Orlando, who is taking some heat and some criticism around these parts by some Marshall fans, trying to get things going. Little quarterback draw. He's able to get away from the first wave of tacklers, but then Mark Magro is able to get the gap. But it's a 4-yard gain.
And Bernard Morris is an outstanding running quarterback. They use him a lot on this quarterback draw, where they'll spread everything out, empty backfield, let him drop back, and then pick a gap. And that's what he's good at, making people miss and finding those open running lanes. He can throw the ball pretty well, too. More of a down-the-field passer. He struggles on the shorter throws. In fact, 2 of his screen passes last week were intercepted. So he has little trouble with the touch, but he can hum it down the field.
He threw 3 picks overall, going 16 for 26 in that loss to Miami. Now on 3rd down goes up, and it's a little too far in front of the receiver. Great job by Courtney Edmondson, though he could not quite bring it in, but there was some pressure up the middle.
Yeah, had a little pressure, and he tried to throw it right into that little seam. You're going to see the pressure here, and he's got time initially, but then bam, the blitzer coming off the edge, lays a hit on him. That's Reed Williams, the middle linebacker, who snuck around the outside and got that pressure. Williams, the defensive player of the week last week for West Virginia, had an outstanding game, 9 tackles and an interception.
And right now, West Virginia's looking at potentially some very good field position as Anthony Binswanger is in. He also, like McAfee for West Virginia, does the punting and the place kicking, taken by Vaughn Rivers. And Rivers is able to get it into Thundering Herd territory. 7-yard return on a 38-yard punt. So Steve Slayton, Pat White coming back on the field, and Huntington, but they're trailing Marshall.
White throwing, there's a man wide open. It's Slayton. White, toe looks okay. Gets around the corner, has a crease. Pat White. Gone.
Steve Slayton and Pat White, certainly the most dynamic duo in college football. There's some arguments there, probably maybe out in Arkansas.
I'm not going to argue with you.
But these two guys are unbelievable. Speed and more speed. Slayton in the first series, 1 carry for no gain as West Virginia was stopped on a 3 and out. But now they have the ball in Marshall territory at the 46. White, time to throw, has his man wide open over the middle. And Darius Raynaud takes it in for the West Virginia touchdown.
And I think Darius Raynaud might be every bit as good as Pat White and Steve Slayton. He is, in fact, Pat White told us Raynaud is the best athlete on this football team, and he gets overshadowed a lot because of the high profile of White and Slayton, but he is an explosive player. Just ran a post route, had man-to-man coverage, blew past the defender, and White put it right on the money.
And that was a great one play. One drive, one play, but the extra point snap, there's a miscue. Jeremy Cash is the holder, was unable to get it down, and West Virginia has to just settle for 6. But let's go back to that nice post route.
And take a look at it here. White's going to look to his right to look that defender off a little bit, but it's just the speed of Raynaud as he just blows past Aaron Johnson, and he just didn't have a chance. And this is what was concerning Steve Dunlap, the defensive coordinator for Marshall. Just the speed, and how do you stop that? There's no way to stop it unless you have speed, and they don't quite match up.
And they are hosting West Virginia for the first time since 1950. 92 years.
A little bit of a dry spell there.
Big time. Marshall has had some great success winning 1 AA championships. West Virginia hoping to win a championship this year, up 6-3 with a touchdown and a missed extra point, or a flub to snap on an extra point. Pat White, there's the elusiveness. But a good job by the Marshall defenders to only hold him to a 5-yard gain. C.J. Spillman, who's been working on his tackling all season, made the stop.
And this is the thing that Pat White is able to do, make people miss. You see him, the penetration got in the throwing lane, so he brought the ball down and then just went to work. Made a couple of guys miss, and then has the power to finish runs as well.
Maurice Kitchens also in there to make the stop. 2nd and 5 for the Mountaineers. With the super talented super back Steve Slayton getting it. And that hole was closed up in a hurry by Michael Janik, the redshirt freshman from Miami.
And they're really high on Janik. They think he's one of the young ball players that's really going to blossom into an outstanding player. You know, and they lost their best defender in preseason, Albert McClellan, who was a Defensive Player of the Year in Conference USA last year. And with him out, that gave Janik an opportunity to play this year.
3rd and 2 for West Virginia. White rolls out, hits the receiver for the first down, as it's Raynaud. Raynaud scoring on a 46-yard touchdown earlier in this game, picks up 19 and a first.
Right, and just a quick out route. You see White's going to step towards it. This is run and shoot football. That's an old run and shoot play, and when we talked to Coach Rodriguez, you know, he said that's where his offense really evolved from, was the old run and shoot, and that's an old run and shoot play right there. Just a quick out where the quarterback rolls to it, and it's enough for the first.
Took the Mouse Davis offense and to a whole new level.
Yeah, the old Tiger Ellison run and shoot, the original.
And that pass again completed to Raynaud, and he's not going anywhere. Stopped for a minimal gain as he was well covered. Raynaud is by far the favorite target. Aaron Johnson able to get over there and make the stop. Albert McClellan, the captain, had 11.5 sacks last year. Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year, did blow out his knee during the preseason. We're going to talk with him later on in the game, but what a huge, huge loss for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he had 19.5 tackles for loss last year, was a dominant player, and had a non-contact injury in fall camp, and he hadn't walked off the field. They didn't think it was that big of a deal, and sure enough, tore his ACL.
Owen Schmidt is in there to block for Pat White, and White has stopped a couple of yards short of the first down by John Saunders.
You know, and Pat White might tell you, I'm not a running quarterback, but he is a quarterback who can run.
Yeah,
and,
that's for sure.
We can put it that way and maybe not offend anybody, but he is such a huge weapon in this offense, because when they spread everybody out and they put him in the backfield with just one back, as Steve Dunlap, the defensive coordinator for Marshall, told us, that's I-backs, because he is such an effective runner. And then they have all the blockers in there because you have to spread out to cover receivers, and it gives the offense a huge advantage to have his running ability.
And with the 3rd and 3, the timeout is taken. Patrick White over 200 rushing yards, best ever for any quarterback in the Big East. West Virginia and Marshall from Huntington, West Virginia. Due to time constraints, we move ahead in our action. Marshall and West Virginia battling. Each team had only 2 first downs apiece in the first quarter. Marshall trailing West Virginia 6-3, and Slayton and White, not what you'd expect from these Heisman hopefuls.
No, and they're a little bit, I don't know, off kilter right now, maybe would be the way to put it, but they are an explosive duo, so it's just a matter of getting touches, and eventually they're going to bust a big one. You can count on that.
Slayton 4 touches for a grand total of 5 yards. Ken McAfee, a little line drive punt, and that one rolls dead around the 37-yard line. McAfee boomed a 55-yarder earlier in this game. That one only traveled 35. For the Herd, Morris pitches it. Marshall picks it up off the bounce and will lose a couple of yards. The ball is loose again. Antonio Lewis closing in on the ball, but Marshall does not cough it up. That was dangerous. They almost gave it up on their side of the field.
Darius Marshall, actually, when he catches this pitch, thinks he's playing basketball. He's going to dribble it one time, but knocks it down on the ground. That was a heck of a play, but he took a nice shot from Lewis to knock the ball out later on. Bam, right there, the big hit. That was actually Quentin Andrews who made the big hit. Lewis had a hold of him by the legs.
So they dodge some trouble there by not fumbling it away, but another punt. Anthony Binswanger pressed into duty because of 2 punters who were hurt in the preseason. Normally their place kicker. That's a beauty. Good hang time. Fair catch. Signaled for and taken by Vaughn Rivers on the 43-yard punt. Pat White and Steve Slayton, like lightning in a bottle. They haven't broken loose yet. Perhaps they will on this series.
Clyde took the job, and you know, there's an old Chinese proverb that if you're ever given something of value, which I was a head football coach at a college at 29 years old, and I thought I could give something back to Marshall in football, and so that's why I took the job. And
of course, you took over the year after the tragic plane crash that basically wiped out the entire football team. What did you think about Matthew McConaughey and the way he portrayed you, and would you say it was an accurate portrayal?
Well, I think Warner Brothers did a good job of telling the whole story, the Marshall story, and Matthew did a good job of bringing the movie together. You know, one night we were on the set and walking back, and he said, you know, Jack, he said, I read all your material, looked at all your playbook and everything, and he said, I internalized it as an actor, and he said, then I didn't try to mimic you, so I tried to play the role. I said, I'm glad you told me that, Matthew, because I was never that animated on the sidelines. And of course he laughed, but I thought he did a brilliant job in the movie.
And Jack, taking over in those circumstances had to be tough. What was the biggest challenge that you faced?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge was to pull. When I got there, I thought I was rebuilding a football team, and I came quickly to find out there were 24 boosters on that plane, 4 doctors and their wives, state senators, city councilmen, leaders, dean of admissions, director of athletics, 70 children without 1 parent and 18 without 2 parents. And I found out that there was a whole community that was devastated with this crash, and we had a whole town behind us and supporting us in the big green, and the community was just absolutely fabulous in the rebuilding. And all we did was lay the foundation. Bobby Pruitt took it to its fruition and had the winningest program in Division 1A 20 years later.
Jack, in the movie, you switched to the veer and you went up to get your information from Bobby Bowden, and I know that was a big help for you.
Bobby Bowden was we couldn't run our offense. We were running a power offense, and I saw Bobby was running the Houston Veer, and the Houston Veer is a concept offense. So I called Bobby, and Bobby graciously invited our whole staff up there. We spent 3 days with them. Frank Signetti taught us the offense. Went down 3 days later, was learning the offense as we put it in. Bobby Bowden is not only a great coach, he's a great human being, and has been close with our family all these years, but he's a wonderful coach, but he's a better human being.
Yeah, Jack, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll let you go back and enjoy the rest of this game. Marshall's in good field position. Jack Langell, thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The head coach of this Marshall team in 1971 after the terrible plane crash, and portrayed so well in that film. We are Marshall, and Matthew's the one on the right. We just talked to the guy on the left. And it was a heck of a film. Bring your tissues if you're going to see it, or buy it. It's coming out a week from Tuesday. And Marshall fans had a lot to cheer about in that last series. And there is the We Are Marshall, the tribute the Memorial Student Center fountain dedicated in November of '72 to the memory of the crash victims, and the water stops flowing every November 14th, which was the date of that terrible tragedy. But out of the ashes has come a great football program. Morris into the end zone, and it is caught for the touchdown. Darius Passmore with the catch, and Marshall leads this game. So Bernard Morris was very close to the line of scrimmage when he let go of that ball. I don't think Darius Passmore is ever going to give that football up. That's his.
And what a play. When things break down, athletes take over. And Morris did so buying the extra time, and Passmore with the speed and the reaction running deep, and then the perfect throw. And Marshall throws a dagger into the heart of West Virginia here in the second quarter.
Coach Jack Langell made it a good luck charm when we were talking to him. Marshall had a great defensive stop, and then Anthony Binswanger with the extra point. 38-yard touchdown to Passmore, and the Thundering Herd lead.
And great protection that time as Morris watches. Nobody's really getting near him. Nobody close to him. He's got the time, so now he's just going to buy more time moving outside. Waves his receiver Passmore down the field and just drops it in perfectly right over the top of Vaughn Rivers. And Passmore, he's got the speed. He shows he runs away from Rivers there. And Rivers never got his head turned around to find the football. And that was the key to that play. And great ad-lib there by Morris and Passmore. And they are excited.
Bernard Morris with his first touchdown pass of this season. And what a big one it was. He says nobody's been able to stop Passmore in scrimmages or practice, and certainly not on the field on that. Back here at Marshall, Steve Slayton just had his longest run of the day, 11 yards for the first down. 1st and 10 from the 23. Mountaineers trailing 13-6. That was the halftime score as well. Zip out. Raynaud is the man on the receiving end. He's able to elude one and more tacklers as Darius Raynaud breaks into the end zone for a second touchdown of the day.
I mentioned it earlier, Darius Raynaud. Pat White called him the best athlete on the football team. That's pretty high praise on this Mountaineers football team. But he showed you that it may not be far from the truth right there, because he caught that pass, made a shake and bake, and made a little move. Right here, he's going to dodge that defender, run past the other one, break Spillman's tackle, and take it into the end zone. And Raynaud with his second touchdown of this ball game. He's been the offense so far for West Virginia, him along with Pat White.
And the extra point by Pat McAfee. West Virginia, their very first possession of the second half, and they take it in. Raynaud with 2 scores, and West Virginia's pass defense last year was not good. Out of 119 teams, they were 109th. And something that has been a point of emphasis, but those statistics can be skewed a little bit when you're stout against the run.
Yeah, and also when you're ahead in ball games and force teams into a passing mode. So it's not a huge concern. At least it wasn't when we talked to Coach Castile, the defensive coordinator.
Short pass that time from Morris to Passmore. Actually, it was Chubb Small, the running back, coming out of the backfield, and he picked up 6. So Bernard Morris, the senior from Orlando, has done a good job back there in the pocket. And one thing that Mark Snyder talked about with us, he said that previously, especially last year, he said when things broke down, Morris would panic as a West Virginia player is being attended to, but he said last week, and certainly so far today, he doesn't seem to be showing any panic whatsoever. Yeah, he was real impressed with the way he had composure and poise last week, because he took a pounding. Now, I mean, that Miami University Hurricane defensive line was all over him, hitting him all day long, and he hung in there and he limped around and he continued to make plays and really showed some mettle that really hadn't manifested itself here at Marshall since his beginning as a quarterback. He's finally grown up as a 5th-year senior. Yep, we had a nice talk with him yesterday. He's very composed and looking forward. He would like to get a chance to play professional football.
With his athleticism, you know, I don't know that he would be a quarterback at the next level, but I think he's a guy that could run around, maybe move to receiver and make plays for you, and he has great running ability. I would put him back there as a punt returner and give him a chance because he is so elusive.
Good size, over 6'4", and 211 pounds.
You got these features, Tony. And that's Kent Richardson, the starting right corner for West Virginia, who's up and walking across the field on his own power. That's good to see.
So after he clears the field, we'll have another field goal attempt, a 34-yarder for Anthony Binswanger, who's 2 for 2 today. He's hit from 32 and 26.
Yeah, and Marshall has made a statement with this drive that they're not going away. They got the running game going pretty good with Marshall. Popped out a big one and hit some short passes. Had the nice one down the middle, and the offense looks good.
And this would be a terrific response to West Virginia scoring a touchdown on its opening series of the second half. Binswanger for the lead. And he has been perfect today. 3 for 3. And Marshall takes the lead right back. A flag, however, is down on the field. And it's offsides against West Virginia.
Yeah, but it won't affect the down and distance in terms of giving him a first down. So I think they're going to leave them points on the board.
Yeah, it was 4th and 6.
If Coach Snyder was a real gambler, which he's proven that he is not, he might think of going for it on a 4th and 1. But I think he's going to keep his points.
Yeah, he went conservative towards the end of the first half when he had a timeout. Instead, just set up his field goal kicker in the middle of the field to kick a 26-yarder in the last play of the half.
Offsides, number 9 of the defense. That penalty is declined. Field goal is good.
So Marshall takes the lead 16-13 over West Virginia. But there's a dynamic duo for the Mountaineers, Slayton and White. When we return, they'll be back on the field. Snyder, class of 1988 here at Marshall.
5-yard face mask, number 45 of the defense. 5 yards from the end of the run. It remains first down.
And Kitchens, the tackler, called for the inadvertent face mask, much to Mark Snyder's chagrin.
Yeah, but he told us he could accept those kind of penalties. The aggressive things, the holdings, the face mask. The things he really needed to eliminate today were the pre-snap problems, and they have done so with just 1 so far today.
Showing a lot more discipline in that area. 1st and 5 after the penalty from the 29. Slayton again, he has room on the right. So fast as he was able to run away from the defender, Aaron Johnson. Picked up 9 yards.
And White shows you the acceleration. He got a nice block from his fullback, Owen Schmidt, who kind of pinned the edge and lets him get around. See him make that cut and then explode to the outside. He's got that ability, and it's usually just a matter of time before he busts a big one.
11 carries for 49 yards now for Slayton. Another first down now on the 20. And Pat White, he has speed as well. White into the end zone for the Mountaineer touchdown.
And West Virginia decided to just run the football on that drive. They think they can wear down this smaller Marshall front, and they proved it on that series as they kept to the ground. They kept pounding it with the zone plays, some veer plays. This is just a quarterback sweep to the right, and look at Steve Slayton getting the block for his roommate, springing Pat White into the end zone.
A 9-play drive. The last 6 plays of that drive were indeed runs, as Pat McAfee adds the extra point, and we've had back and forth scores here. West Virginia with a couple of touchdowns here in the 3rd quarter. First we saw Slayton with some speed, and that Pat White turned on the Jets. West Virginia back.
He's trying to stay cool. That's the middle linebacker, Reed Williams, who forced that fumble that put West Virginia in position to go up a couple of scores.
As Darius Marshall coughed it up right at midfield. That's where this drive started. 3rd and 2 for the Mountaineers. Slayton is split wide left. But White hangs on to it, and Pat White is able to wriggle down close to the 1-yard line. White got 10 yards on that run, and it's 1st and goal.
And we were talking to Steve Dunlap, the defensive coordinator for Marshall. He said we have to get 2 guys, maybe 3, to the point of attack every time, because they make the first guy misses. He doesn't very often make the tackle, and you saw that was the case on that last one there with Pat White putting a little spin move on, and Marshall was able to rally and stop the touchdown, but Pat White was getting it done on the ground.
1st and goal just inside the 2, and that's an easy touchdown as Steve Slayton goes in for the score.
And the offensive line for the Mountaineers, Figner, Rodemeyer, Dent, Isdenner, and Stanchek are dominating the line of scrimmage right now. On that drive, they just knocked Marshall clear off the ball.
And the lightest guy of the 5 you just mentioned is Mike Dent at 285. Everybody else is at least 300. And the Marshall defensive line depleted, certainly with Albert McClellan's season-ending injury, starting to get worn down as McAfee puts through the extra point. And there's Isdenner and some of the big guys in front blocking for Pat White and Steve Slayton. Slayton's 1-yard run, McAfee's extra point, extends the lead to 27-16.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the mindset of Rich Rodriguez and his football team is they love to run the football. And they are pounding the ball here in the second half.
Steve Slayton and Patrick White got us to thinking about some other dynamic duos. They certainly are dynamic, both of them being mentioned as Heisman Trophy candidates. Batman and Robin back in the day. Oh, Bert and Ernie.
Dynamic right there. Not so much for me.
You know, you get thumbs down on that one. And for the chicks out there, Thelma and Louise, although that didn't end very well. Neither did this marriage.
What a great TV show, though.
They were a great act, and of course, Mork and Mindy. But we got Steve and Pat, Slayton and White, and they are doing it here in the 3rd quarter as they trailed at halftime 13-6. But they've come out with a couple of touchdowns. So 3 touchdowns here in the 3rd quarter. And Rich Rodriguez, the offensive mastermind, another pop-up as they're trying to keep the ball away from Darius Marshall. They do, and that's a good tackle as Spann is taken down. Let's go back to the studio now and Stan Barrett. Thank you, Stan. I heard Chris Spielman saying last night that the T-shirt sales in Columbus for Appalachian State T-shirts were way up.
I'll bet.
I think so. The fans in Akron or in Ann Arbor might return the favor with Akron T-shirts if they can beat Ohio State. Big-time speed for Darius Passmore as he is finally shoved out of bounds at the 42 of West Virginia. That's a 30-yard run. And he's slow getting up.
Yeah, and that's not a good sign to see him holding that leg for Marshall fans. But what an explosive run by Passmore. Once he got the ball in his hands, that thing opened up a little bit, and he just flies through it. Now, that's perfect timing on the motion and the handoff. And when you get that kind of timing, it's a foot race to the edge, and Passmore, look at him, he's got a running head start. And he's got a lead blocker and Shope out there, and that's a nice football play for him. The only negative is Passmore down on the sidelines.
Grabbed his right knee as he fell. Passmore was a terrific sprinter. Ran a 10.7 100 meters, which is blazing, as they are going to help him back to the bench.
Yeah, he uses his grandfather as motivation. His grandfather kept him going and had passed away, and he put the Passmore name tattooed on his back You see it right now on his jersey. Well, if you were to peel that jersey off and those pads off, you'd see it tattooed across his back just like that in 3-inch high letters.
A much more permanent tribute. They're going to take a look at him as they lay him down on the table. But Passmore picked up 30. 1st and 10 now from the 42. Morris going up top. And that's his talented tight end, Cody Slate. Touchdown, Thundering Herd. They answer the West Virginia touchdown right back.
Just a corner route by the tight end, Cody Slate. He got behind the receiver. A perfectly thrown ball for Bernard Morris. And Slate, all he had to do was catch it, make sure he stayed in bounds, and run up the sidelines. And now Marshall looks like they're going to, I think they're going to kick this thing. Looked like the possibility of going for 2. I think it's too early for that.
Absolutely.
But it would have gotten them within 3, but they're going to kick it.
I agree. It hurt Michigan last week going for 2 early and not getting it. Then you just keep falling behind.
Right, chasing those points.
So they go with the automatic extra point, and it is when Binswang was kicking them. So the last 2 plays covered 72 yards in only 20 seconds.
Oh, what a perfect throw right over the top. Slate tight ropes along the sideline. And bam, right there. Perfect throw. Nice route. And Marshall answers in a big way. And they needed that one because it was starting to slip away a little bit.
Instead, it's only a 4-point lead in this crazy third quarter. 10 points now for Marshall in this third quarter, 21 for West Virginia.
And a nice looking set of numbers there for Bernard Morris. 14 of 22, 215 yards already, and a pair of touchdowns.
He was an invited walk-on out of Orlando, and he has shown a lot of poise for Mark Snyder this afternoon.
And he was a delight to talk to, too. A very respectful young man, and easy smile, and you could see the confidence that he's had. I did a game here a couple years ago, and he was a little younger back then and splitting time with Skinner at quarterback, and he wasn't as sure of himself. But you can see that he's really matured in this Marshall Thundering Herd program as Passmore's up on the sideline trying to get loose.
So that's a great sign as Passmore went down after a big catch. Clutching his right knee, Noel Devine, who is really one of the great recruits out of Florida along with Jock Sanders. He got the kickoff and was tackled by Kelvin Turner, one of the running backs.
See if West Virginia continues to just pound the ball on the ground.
Steve Slayton and Pat White, 2 Heisman Trophy candidates. Pat White over 100 yards on the ground, through the air, and approaching it on the ground, out rushing his roommate. 3 possessions in this quarter and 3 touchdowns for West Virginia. White on the keeper, eludes one would-be tackler, and then steps out of bounds after about a 5-yard gain.
And Marshall, the tackling is getting a little sloppy. You know, in the first half, and they had just 4 missed tackles. In this half, they've already had 10.
Ooh.
And we saw 5 on the one play.
Right. That'll pile up in a hurry when you have 5 of them. Just trying to stop White and Slayton. And this, again, it's a very warm afternoon here in Huntington. 2nd and 5 from the 35. Slayton and Schmidt in the backfield. They give it to Slayton right up the gut. And Steve has stopped a couple of yards short of the first down.
And they've decided that they can run the football, and that's what they're doing.
And right now we'll get another update from Stan Barrett. Good one going on at Wake Forest, and a good one here. A defensive stop. Joe Bragg with the tackle. And West Virginia will be stopped for the first time here in the third quarter.
And the Marshall defenders got up the field into the gaps, and that really was left nowhere for Pat White, or excuse me, yeah, for Pat White to run the football.
They had 4 3-and-outs in the first half, did West Virginia. This is their first of this one. Pat McAfee back into punt for the first time this half. Span and Small waiting for Marshall. And Small retreats a little bit, picks it up.
That's a late hit.
And they got him for it as he was hit clearly out of bounds. So some extra yardage will be tacked on.
Yeah, and that's just a guy losing place of where he is on the field and trying to do too much.
There's Emmanuel Span, and no doubt about it.
And that's Charles Pugh, backup defensive back, who's getting a chance to play on special teams and got a little overzealous.
After the play was over, personal foul, late hit out of bounds, number 15 of the kicking team, 15 yards, first down.
So tack on 15 more yards, and the ball is placed right at midfield for Bernard Morris. Morris's line, a couple of touchdown passes, some really nice touch on those passes as well. A 38-yarder to Darius Passmore in the second quarter, and a 42-yarder just recently to Cody Slate. Passmore back in there. Good to see, because he went out holding his knee on his last catch. Morris, with time, decides to go to his secondary receiver, and he finds him on the sideline. That is complete to Passmore.
Yeah, Passmore really wasn't a primary guy, as you said, in this route, Pam. He's just going to run upfield and kind of settle down as he sees the defense drop back. And credit Morris for finding him. He had the time to do it. You see he's sitting up, he's looking down the middle, Finally, no pressure on him. He looks outside, sees his guy open, and throws another dime right to him.
Another example of the maturity is he did not panic and found the open receiver. Maybe a loss of a half a yard on that play. Chubb Small tackled behind the line. Let's go down to Rob Simmelcare.
Pam, this Marshall sideline is about as jacked up as any sideline I've been on in recent years. Coach Mark Snyder, he's about as animated as Matthew McConaughey was in that movie. He's running out off the sideline. He was actually running over to one of his players who's injured out for the year and yelling at him, telling him how to make a play. I mean, he is just running around and cannot be stopped right now. This is a very, very excited Marshall sideline.
And of course, Mark Snyder went to school here, actually grew up as a Marshall fan, said he used to come to games with his grandfather. So he's been waiting for this for a long time. Kelvin Turner with the carry as a flag is down near the line of scrimmage. 5-yard gain for Turner, but we'll wait the flag.
And Coach Snyder's mother, Jo, his biggest critic, by the way, she'll sit in and watch him do press conferences and correct every little thing for him. But she's a huge Marshall fan. That whole family, they were more interested in what Marshall was doing than what he was doing, their son Mark Snyder, when he was at Ohio State.
Holding, number 79 on offense, 10 yards from the previous spot, from the line of scrimmage. Second down.
That's Daniel Baldridge, a sophomore from Louisiana. And there you see Mark Snyder, and he was an assistant at Ohio State when they were winning the championship. And he said that sometimes his mother would say to him that she had to work and couldn't come see the game at Ohio State. Columbus is only a couple hours away. And he said he heard from other people that mom was watching Marshall. She came here to watch Marshall play home games rather than go see her son.
You know, and when it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
So I'm sure Joe is very excited and jacked up about this one as we're approaching the end of the third quarter. 2nd and 21 after the holding penalty, and down goes Morris in the arms of Morty Ivy. So West Virginia coming up with a 5-yard loss on that sack, and that will end the third quarter. And what a third quarter it was. West Virginia scoring 3 touchdowns, but Marshall's hanging right in there. First time they've played here in 92 years against West Virginia, and we've only got a 4-point ball game. For the first time since 1915, these two teams are playing in this town, the campus of Marshall University. West Virginia 6-0 in this series. They played last year. The series had been discontinued for about 60 years before they matched up in 97. And a penalty flag is down as the fourth quarter is about to get underway.
And I think Cody Slate, the tight end, jiggled a little bit in his stance.
False start. Number 85, offense, 5 yards. Remains third down.
That is exactly what they got. Slate, the very promising tight end in his second year as a sophomore. And here's our score by the quarter. It was an explosion, 31 total points scored in the third quarter. 338 yards combined for both teams after they only had 302 yards combined in the first half.
I think the defenses are getting a little more tired out there.
There are also 17 first downs combined in the third quarter as Chuck Small gets the carry. Picked up 5 on that before Ryan Mundy made the stop, the senior from Pittsburgh. Last year, these two teams met up in Morgantown, and West Virginia won it by the final of 42-10. They have totally blown out, not just 6-0, but totally outscored Marshall in this series until today. Last time they played here, the final was 92-6 as Vaughn Rivers punts it, and it goes into the end zone. So West Virginia will get it at the 20. This college football season, ESPN will be counting down the top 25 greatest players in college football. Let's check out our preview.
The 25 greatest players in college football history, presented by IBM, coming in 2 weeks. IBM, getting it done.
There was an expert panel. People could vote on quite a list. The original list was huge, trying to narrow it down.
I don't think I was on it, but I probably should have been.
I think you should have been.
Thank you.
They asked my opinion.
That's right.
And a lot of guys who have made it in the National Football League were on that list. But some guys who've had great college careers should certainly be considered. As Owen Schmidt is bottled up, gets maybe a yard. Schmidt from Fairfax, Virginia. So if you're just joining us, this has been a ball game from the get-go. Darius Marshall took the opening kick 77 yards, and Marshall took a 3-0 lead and a 13-6 lead into the half. But West Virginia started to run the ball a lot more in the third quarter. Steve Slayton had 2 yards on the ground in the first half, 62 yards on the ground in the third quarter alone. So they are starting to play some West Virginia football and wearing down this Marshall front, but boy, they are still in it. They won't go away. Keeping it is White. Decided not to pitch it back to Schmidt, and he picks up the first down. As Pat White got 10 yards on that, Ashton Hall with the stop.
He's running the veer here. He's just going to read this defensive end up top. That's the guy he's looking at. Actually, it's the outside backer. The next guy out. See how 91 closed down Johnny Jones to take away that dive, and then Pat White will pull it and still have the pitch option as he hits the perimeter.
And look at him. He's over 100 yards now, both running and throwing the ball. His 10th career 100-yard rushing game. As Slayton gets into the act, Steve lands on top of one of his offensive linemen out near the 38-yard line. Maurice Kitchens makes the stop. Slayton is, of course, been talked about for the Heisman Trophy. He says all he's thinking about is championship, but people are going to look at this score, Ray, struggling against a Marshall team, and really these guys have to run the table, I think, to be considered for the national championship, and you see Slayton really coming on here in the second half.
Yeah, he's really been a better back in the second half, more focused, but he still is yet to break the big one that we usually see from him.
On the rollout, White hits Owen Schmidt, and Schmidt is into Marshall territory as he is tackled down around the 47. That's a 16-yard gain.
And he could have got more. He ran into his own guy. Darrell Jala, the receiver out there, was looking for somebody to block and ends up smashing into Owen Schmidt.
Schmidt, one of the many walk-ons. Rich Rodriguez is a former walk-on himself. Really takes a shining to them, has tryouts for them, and gives them legitimate chances to make the team in play.
Yeah, he's got 26 walk-ons, kids that are getting money now in his program.
And Pat White again heading towards the sidelines, about a yard short of the first down as we go back to Stan Barrett. Thank you, Stan. So Louisiana Monroe playing them tough early, but now Clemson breaking out on top as they play in Death Valley. We've got a great atmosphere here. Over 30,000 people crammed into a 28,000-seat stadium. Largest crowd ever to see a football game here. As Slayton does break through right through the middle, twirls around and picks up another first down. Kitchens with the stop, but 12 more for Slayton.
Yeah, and he was so close to busting out the other end on that one. Kitchens just got a hold of him, or he would have hit that gas pedal and been gone.
The remarkable thing about Slayton, he played all of last year with a broken right wrist. Thinks he broke it originally in his freshman year against Connecticut. Finally had surgery in the offseason, has a pin in there, and he still was wonderful last year with 1,700 yards plus on the ground, a West Virginia record. And he gets it again.
And that's a case of a kid just being too tough for his own good. You know, he's got this little injury that's bothering him, but he isn't saying anything, and he keeps fighting through it, and eventually it did cost him. The couple of fumbles that he had against Louisville, they were tied directly to that wrist problem, and he got it taken care of with that surgery in January. He's got a pin in there, and he'll have that for the rest of his life.
Says it does not bother him at all right now as White hangs on to it looking for a first down, and he has it as he steps out of bounds. Steve Slayton last year, a school record 1,744 yards, and he was remarkable, fourth in the Heisman Trophy voting. And again, doing that, not just the broken right wrist, but you remember he also had a nerve problem that made his left wrist weak, so he was playing basically with no good hands.
Yeah, and it's tough when you're running the football. A lot of times you'll see backs switching the ball from hand to hand to keep it away from contact, and he didn't have that luxury.
He's on the sideline now. Owen Schmidt is in the backfield with Pat White. First down from the 16. The Marshall fans screaming for a defensive stop. White hangs on to it. They keep him in bounds as he picks up about 4. West Virginia next week will go to Maryland, which really, if you look at their schedule, as Slayton takes a blow on this very hot afternoon, Maryland really looks like their toughest non-conference opponent.
Yeah, where they're going to get into it is that last 5 games in that Big East schedule when they take on the likes of Rutgers and Louisville and Pitt and Connecticut, Cincinnati. Those are going to be tough games for them.
Yep, finishing with the backyard brawl. They do host Pittsburgh this year, does West Virginia, on December 1st. 2nd and 6. Handoff to Noel Devine, and the slippery freshman goes into the end zone for a touchdown. His first, and now his second collegiate score.
And slippery is the right word. And he's not the biggest of running backs. They list him at 5'8", 170 pounds. And it's hard. That's a hard target to hit. And then because he's so low to the ground, they slide off of him. And he's got explosiveness and power from that small frame, and he showed it on that touchdown run.
True freshman from Tampa as McAfee adds the extra point. And Devine came out of high school. Some of the pundits said that he's the most exciting high school player since Reggie Bush.
High praise.
Pretty good company. This was nifty. He's in the end zone, and the lead has been extended to 11. In 1971, they won 2 ball games total, including that win here against Xavier, 15-13. Later in the year, they won also against Bowling Green. But what an inspirational story.
Yeah, and they scored on the last play of that game to pull that victory out. And that was such a watershed moment for this entire community to come back, and nobody thought they had a chance rebuilding that team. They had the Marshall rule, which allowed freshmen to play in that 1971 season here, and that was the one big one at home. And what an amazing thing and catharsis that was for this community.
They also beat Bowling Green later on in that season, and we had a visit. Jack Aniel was a guest on the phone with us earlier today. Great guest, and he was the head coach who took on the challenge of rebuilding this program as Steve Slayton burrows forward for a couple. And Slayton now is over 100 yards for the game, which is remarkable considering he had 2 yards in the first half.
And he's that kind of back where you just keep giving him the ball because you know he's going to get his. And I know we've made a big deal about it up here, but he could care less really how many yards he gets. He just wants to lead that man's football team to victory, and that's his main focus.
His 17th career 100-yard game. He has 102 yards in the second half. West Virginia has scored 28 points since halftime. Owen Schmidt with another first down run. That's the big, powerful back picking up 8 yards.
Look at the explosion in the third quarter by this West Virginia offense, and the bulk of that coming on the ground. They struggled early. They tried to throw a lot of short passes out to the flat in that first few series, and Marshall was ready for that, just put the kibosh on it, and West Virginia decided, you know what, we're just going to run it at you because we're bigger and we're stronger, and we feel that's the way to get it done, and they have been successful since they made that decision.
Marshall did take a 13-6 lead at halftime. As a flag is down, Slayton, another flag down. There's the Steve Slayton breaking free, but a couple of flags are down. Slayton picked up 14.
I believe Marshall was offside, so this one should stand.
Slayton, the sophomore from Levittown, Pennsylvania.
Offside. Number 90 of the defense. Penalty is declined. First down.
Actually, Slayton now a junior as they do wipe out the penalties. 14 more for Slayton. Later tonight, ESPN2 brings you not one, but 2 great college football games starting at 6 Eastern. Jimmy Clausen in charge of Notre Dame as they travel to take on Penn State. Then at 9:15, LSU's terrific defense takes on Virginia Tech. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. First career start, Jimmy Clausen will be in Happy Valley.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting. And Matt Flynn making his first career start down there for LSU, at least at home. It'll be his 3rd career start, first one at home.
Noel Devine has a touchdown and now close to another first down. There's Virginia Tech with that very emotional win last week against East Carolina as they were going through so much. They are going through a healing process, much like the folks here did. Very different circumstances, obviously, with the whole team being lost in a plane crash here, but that terrible shooting on the campus of Virginia Tech, very emotional. They struggled a little bit against East Carolina, so some concerns for them heading into tonight's game.
Yeah, and tonight will really be the test because with all the extraneous things going on and the emotions, it's really hard to get a gauge on Frank Beamer's football team in that ball game, but we'll find out a lot more as they go down there to Tiger Stadium and try to knock off LSU.
Pat White dancing for a first down. And let's go back to Blacksburg. Some of the images last week as the fans got ready for a football game and also tried to heal from really what put Virginia Tech in the national news headlines.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the great things that football, college football brings you is a way for everybody to rally and be together, be on the same page, and as a community try to get past and through and over things.
Because it is, after all, just a game, but it can do a lot of magical things in hard times. 1st and 10, and there's Slayton again. And of course, Marshall went through a very similar thing when they were putting their football program together up the road in Morgantown when Bobby Bowden was in charge of the Mountaineers, and he helped out when the coaches went up, and he basically opened up the film room and let them learn the Veer offense.
Yeah, invited them up for 3 days. He gave them carte blanche to anything they wanted up there, and it just shows you the community spirit of college football.
So on that day and through that process, the Mountaineers and the Thunder and Herd were one. Right now, not so much. It's a great rivalry, and hope that this now 7-game series can continue when it expires. Slayton over 100 yards on the day, looking for more. Gets close to the first down as he picked up 8. And these are some of the sights and sounds around this campus in Huntington, West Virginia, remembering the 75 lives lost in the plane crash November 14th, 1970. That fountain is turned off every November 14th. The silence to commemorate those who died on approach to the Huntington Airport here. And of course the We Are Marshall movie, if you haven't seen it, it's really good. It's coming out on DVD a week from Tuesday.
Yeah, if that one doesn't get your eyes a little moist and tug at the heartstrings, then you might want to check for a heartbeat, because that's some serious stuff there.
And just a great story of how this community, and especially back in 1970, you can imagine how much smaller it was that many years ago, and how they were able to come up, and gosh, they won a couple of national championships at the 1AA level, and they're fighting back now.
Yeah, and there was some resistance. Some people thought, you know what, man, let's gather ourselves a little bit here before we dive headlong into rebuilding the program, but they stuck with it, they got it done, and it's been great ever since.
And they have been playing tooth and nail here against mighty West Virginia. Here's the Steve Slayton touchdown run we've been expecting. Slayton finds the corner of the end zone, and West Virginia scores again.
And I said it earlier, the second half has been all about the big boys up front for West Virginia. They are now knocking Marshall off the ball. Look at this hole. I mean, there's nobody near it. Dingle got a hand on him, but that's just a foot race, and that's domination by that offensive line up front for West Virginia, moving people out of the way.
And this was a West Virginia type of drive. 9 plays, 80 yards, all of them coming on the ground, culminating with an 18-yard touchdown run for Steve Slayton. Slayton now with 146 yards on the ground, 142 in the. Welcome back to Huntington. The second half has belonged to West Virginia. They only had 6 points at the half, and starting to stay on the ground. The dynamic duo, not so dynamic, very average in the first half, not so much in the second.
Yeah, they really got it going, pounding the football, the running game here in the second half. And Pat White, he got himself a touchdown with a nice block from Slayton. Slayton busts one off the outside for his first touchdown. Here's that most recent one, taking it out to the left side. And these two guys ended up with some pretty nice numbers here on the ball game. I think one of those are going to get the Bentley Award.
For the player of the game?
Yes, sir. Or ma'am, excuse me.
It's quite all right, sir. Between Slayton and Pat White. Remember, Slayton at the half only had 2 yards on 5 carries. And they went back to the old-fashioned West Virginia, just put it on the ground, and they have a couple of touchdowns here in the fourth quarter. So 5 touchdowns in the second half for the Mountaineers, the third-ranked team in the country, which really got a scare from this Marshall football team. Darius Marshall with the kickoff return. Now it is time. No more suspense, Ray Bentley. Who gets your award this week?
Well, I'm going to go with a guy that's not just a guy. He's a heck of a football player, and that is Pat White. And he kind of held things together for this football team when it was shaky. He was steady throughout the game, consistent, hit 13 of 18 for a couple of touchdown passes, ran for over 100 yards for the 10th time in his career, but he really kept his composure, and he wasn't concerned when they weren't moving the ball early on. He just kept firing away, getting it done, and for that, he gets the Bentley Award.
And well-deserved, over 300 yards of offense and great composure. He really has turned into a terrific leader. Morris is back in the game and promptly fumbles the snap as we go back. He did recover it. Let's go back to Stan Barrett. Thank you, Stan. And on the last play here, not the fault of Morris, who fumbled the snap. It was another low snap from Doug Legursky, but he at least was able to hang on to it. Kelvin Turner swinging out of the backfield, and Turner gets a nice gain of 11 yards up to around the 33-yard line.
And back to that low snap, Pam. That's something that I saw on film. That was a problem for Marshall last week, and it continues. By our count up here, we have 5 low snaps today, and they want to hit him right at the belt buckle with it, because that's where the ball's going to be when he starts running his fakes and things of that nature. And that thing's been down there around the knees and even lower several times.
Morris has played a very solid game at quarterback as he almost had that one picked off. Retreating, and
Richardson almost took that one the other way, and I would call that another dropped interception, which is a total of 5 now on the year for the Mountaineers. They need to get out there and work the jugs machine and practice some catching, but there is a reason those guys play defense.
Right. If they had great hands, it'd be on the other side of the ball. Eric Wicks talked to us earlier this week and said that a lot of those guys were doing just that, staying after practice, and as Wicks was one of those guys who couldn't hang on to an interception last week in their win over Western Michigan. So they put in some extra practice time to try to bring in those picks. That punt bounces and is down near the 45-yard line of West Virginia. Only a 22-yarder for Binswanger. Tonight on ABC, the final race before the Chase Field is locked. 3 drivers vie for 2 spots. It all comes down to this one, the NASCAR Nextel Cup Series Chevy Rock and Roll 400 at Richmond. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern with NASCAR Countdown. For more information, log on to ESPN.com. Martin Truex Jr., Kurt Busch, and Kevin Harvick battling for that 10th and final spot for the race. And Pat White, you know, once you win the Bentley Award, you got to sit down, have a cool drink, you're done. And indeed, Pat White is. He sits down, and Jarrett Brown, sophomore from West Palm Beach, Florida. This guy is a talented quarterback.
Yeah, extremely. He's probably the best backup in the nation, as Noel Devine is just going to hit it down the sideline here.
So you go from speed with Slayton to super speed with Noel Devine.
Boy, things look good for the future of this Mountaineer football team. Look at this. This is in real time. Look at the explosion and the acceleration that Noel Devine gives you coming out of the backfield. A little face mask at the end of that. But I'm telling you, the future is bright, because as good as that man is right there, Noel Devine might even be better before it's all over.
Look at the career rushing touchdowns in high school, 92 of them. Of course, some great college football in Florida. Ran for 6,800 yards total, 2,100 yards as a senior, with 31 touchdowns just in his senior season.
And he lost both of his parents before he was a teenager. He's come from a real challenging upbringing, but he was able to fight through all those things and get himself straightened out enough to be in a major college football program.
Took that one down to the 10-yard line. Devine scored on a 12-yard touchdown run earlier in this quarter. Steve Slayton and Pat White, they're feeling a lot better than they were about an hour ago, I'm sure. And next up for them again, they go at Maryland. They will be playing in College Park. And that's a short week, Ray, because they got to play at Maryland on Thursday. That's a short turnaround.
It really is, but they've done that over the years. And Coach Rodriguez has said, you know what, that's not a big deal to us. We've been there and done that. And as long as we're healthy coming out, we should be in good shape.
Maryland coming off an inspiring win over Villanova on opening day. West Virginia will be a much tougher test. Running again, Devine for the corner of the end zone.
He's in.
No signal yet. There it comes. So Noel Devine, the true freshman from Florida, has 2 touchdowns.
Noel Devine was a protege, I guess, so to speak, of Deion Sanders a little bit. Deion got involved there and tried to get him to go to Florida State, of course. And Noel said that when he came up to West Virginia for his visit, he instantly fell in love with it. And that's why he decided to go here, regardless of what anyone else wanted to do. And you see him just slide his foot into the end zone there, and the ball breaks the plane while he's still in bounds for a touchdown.
Devine, 5 carries for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. And 2 of Devine's biggest fans, Pat and Steve.
Yeah, and we talked to Steve Slayton about it. He says, you know, I played as a freshman, so I know what Devine and Jock Sanders, the other true freshmen they have in the backfield, are going through. And he's been able to mentor those guys. And he says they've been so eager. They've been like sponges coming up in the summer and learning things, and they've been soaking it up enough to the point where they've been able to get on the field here early in their careers.
Boy, such a luxury to have that kind of talent waiting in the wings. 1 more year of eligibility for Slayton. But you know, NFL scouts have to be drooling over him. Now a junior out of Levittown, Pennsylvania. And these guys are getting their push-ups in now. West Virginia had only 6 points at the half, and now they've broken it open.
Yeah, they were well rested in that first half. Only had to do 6 push-ups.
I think I could even do 6.
I bet I could too.
48, no way.
48 would be a challenge.
But if you're Marshall, looking ahead for them, they host New Hampshire and then go to Cincinnati. So they're doing some aggressive scheduling at Marshall, and but this is, I know nobody, and I'm sure coaches don't believe, you've been a coach too, Ray, you don't believe necessarily in good losses, but they're going to come away with some good things.
Yeah, they are, and they're going to be ready once their Conference USA schedule starts. They're going to be ready to play, and I think they're going to be very competitive in that conference this year.
Darius Marshall with the return as we return to Stan Barrett. Thank you, Stan. We're all going to look forward to that one. And again, Coach O'Brien should get, because remember when he took over that BC program, it was scandal-ridden. They had some big problems off the field, and he did some very good things there. So hopefully he'll get a nice warm response, and that'll be an interesting game coming up in the ACC.
I think you'll hear both boos and cheers.
Yeah. These are the Heisman hopefuls just in the Big East. Talk about some talent. Brian Brom, that was a 100-point game he was involved in. Ray Rice, wonderful yesterday, and also had a touchdown catch, and Slayton and White have been terrific here in the second half.
Yeah, outstanding talent in the Big East. Some of the highest profile and better players in the whole nation.
Slate tackled inbounds, but picks up the first down. Cody Slate, number 85. You're going to hear about him for the next couple of years. And Pat White on the sidelines, calling it a day after he had 125 yards on the ground and 149 yards through the air with 2 touchdown passes. Bernard Morris continues to take snaps for Marshall. And the middle screen to Kelvin Turner. He'll pick up yardage up to the 45-yard line. Boogie Allen making the stop. Mark Snyder in his 3rd year as West Virginia. It only took him 92 years to play here. He'll come back in a couple of years, but what an atmosphere it has been for the Battle of the Mountain State. And West Virginia really all they could handle in the first half.
Yeah, Mark Snyder's going to take a lot of good things out of this game with his football team. The way they came out, they had that lead at halftime. They did a lot of good things early. Ultimately, they just got basically overrun on defense in the second half. And that's something that when you don't have the depth and you're trying to get things going and building up a program, that'll happen to you when you take on the big boys sometimes.
So Rich Rodriguez going in at halftime with his team down 13-6, kept the ball on the ground a lot, and Steve Slayton over 100 yards on the ground just in the second half. Darius Marshall, true freshman, another bright light for this program, picks up the first down. And the fans, many of them still remaining, especially the Mountaineer fans, stand and cheer. Several of the Marshall fans also cheering. It's been a long time coming, almost a century before the Mountaineers came into Marshall. And after getting a scare like this, you kind of know why they didn't want to play them. Marshall, a great program. They played them tough, took the lead at the half, but fall 48-23. Coming up next, more ESPN2 college football, including the scoreboard show presented by Acura for Ray Bentley and Rob Simmelcare. I'm Pam Ward. As we say so long from Huntington, this is a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.